Good morning and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHHFM. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines, the stories that make our community tick. Well, we're all trying to make sense of the COVID-19 virus. And as we get, excuse me one second, we got a little feedback here. I'm trying to figure out why.
Sorry about that. I was doing the Facebook for you.
Oh, no problem. Anyway,
Hi,
welcome
guys.
to Dateline New Haven, WNHHFM. We got a great guest today. He's going to help us with some of the broader view on the day-to-day life as we've gotten used to the COVID-19 crisis and are changing our routines. Every day we think about, should we wear a mask? Should we not wear a mask? Is someone we know getting sick? Are we getting sick? But what about how we're going to move forward from here?
Yeah.
Juliette Kayyem was on with us today, knows about how to deal with crises and pandemics. She played a pivotal role in the handling of the H1N1 pandemic and the BP oil spill, while she served as President Obama's Assistant Secretary for Intergovernmental Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. She's now a lecturer in international security at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Good morning, and what a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Kayyem.
Well, thank you for having me.
Are you in Cambridge right now?
I am in Cambridge. I'm in my house where I've been. I practice what I preach, and my CNN studio is right there because I'm an on-air analyst for them. They set up, so this is my radio studio, and behind me is my CNN studio.
So what do they do on the TV? How do you set up a CNN studio at your home? Do you have to?
They sent really fancy lights that make me look 10 years younger, and and boxes and cameras and stuff, but mostly. I've been with CNN a couple years. I was there. I think they sometimes ask me to go to New York as this was heating up. I was there like March. What was the date the NBA closed, which was sort of that pivotal night, like the 17th?
I think something like that.
So I was in New York and I said, I'm going to get home because something, this is now moving at light speed. And they just mailed stuff. And so I've been, I had to finish classes online. I was teaching this semester a crisis management course. I do a lot of corporate and public advising. And then, so just basically it's all from here though, nothing too exciting.
Well, what kind of stage are we in now? You talked about that time in March when by the minute, it seemed like we were all updating our phones for new news alerts, trying to figure out, was the sky falling? Are we now in a period, as half the country believes, where things are easing up and our lives will gradually get back to normal? Or are we, as the other half of the country believes, recklessly moving ahead to create a rebound that's going to be worse than the first?
Yeah, so we don't know. I mean, it's such a great question. I mean, look, I think and I'm not a doctor, I think any sort of objective assessment of what the standards should have been for reopening, that most states were premature. In other words, that they didn't see 2 weeks of downward decline of numbers in terms of the dead or new cases, that we weren't ready. We still aren't ready with testing and treatment. So, but one of the things about being in crisis management for most of your life is you sort of take the world as it is, not as you want it to be. And so then what does that mean? Okay, so it means that we're going to be opening up under less than ideal conditions, and certainly compare other countries early, but there are still ways that we can open safely. That's part of an initiative that I'm a part of, which is okay. Americans are impatient. The president is impatient. Let's do this safely, right? Because when you said something like, are we gonna get back to normal? The short answer to that is absolutely no, and that's going to be for a long time. I mean, we're entering a stage that I have come to call the adaptive recovery stage, which is we are recovering from the drama of trying to stop the spread, but we're going to live with the virus for some period of time, and whether it's a vaccine that makes it end, or the virus mutates and becomes less lethal, or we get herd immunity, we don't know. But for at least a year, if not more, we will have to adapt in real time, and we can do it. We're learning a lot. We can minimize, the intensity of contact. So, I don't mind hairdressers being open. I kind of wince at the idea of a gym being open at this stage, and we can try to limit the number of people who are together at any given time. So I do think sports will be different. I don't think religious institutions should be open yet, or at least not without serious mitigation.
How
And
about
then
outdoor services for?
outdoor services is fine. If you tell me outdoor, you had me at hello. I mean, almost
Mhm,
anything, I still want masking and stuff, but I mean, just, because that's because we're learning about the virus. And
mhm,
then, we as individuals are just going to have to maximize, mitigation efforts, which is the masking and the continuing social distancing and the work from home if you can. I'm definitely, I don't, if your business has been successful enough, why would you put employees on public transportation, threaten their illness, let alone your workforce illness, at this stage? So yeah, I have strong feelings about this stuff, obviously, but I do think that
yeah,
we
I was
can
surprised when you said
do this.
salons, because like, I'm not an
Well,
expert
because
either. I
and I
couldn't believe that people were gonna have hairdressers with hair blowers in a small space.
right. So I mean, and it depends on how you. So one is you would only have one person. So this is the mitigation thing. So how are you doing it? So my hope is to get my person. I'll pay more to come to my house to go to look
Mhm.
at this as I touch my 8 foot long hair. But but I do think that there are ways in which you can even make that experience not. You can reduce the risk. That's the stage we're in. We're not at risk, no risk. We're at risk mitigation. And we
Mhm.
will be like that for a long time. And people, people's risk assessment will also differ. If I have a precondition, if I have someone from a vulnerable population living in my house, if, I have 3 teenagers, me or my husband are the ones that are more likely to get sick than them. But even my risk calculation for myself has changed, and I don't know when it changes back. Like, I don't particularly want to go to a restaurant. I mean, I got 3 kids. Like,
Are
why would
you
I?
worried? But you're not. I'm not hearing from you that you're worried that it's going to be worse, because some people have these doomsday predictions. Obviously, none of us knows, but a lot of
No, none
people
of us
feel
knows.
like
And
it's
so I
gotten better
do.
at flattening the curve for the disaster at the hospitals. But looking at Montgomery, where
Yeah.
they don't have rented beds, but also you talk about people showing up in public and deciding on their own risk. When I see the big crowds in the
Oh my
bars
God.
and the
That's
beaches, I think that's not only individuals deciding on their own risk; they're deciding my risk
Yeah. It's
because they're
just, I know.
spreading the virus.
I'm a long distance runner. Your listeners can't see me, but I'm a long distance runner, and I think it's just courtesy, it's kindness, it's to run with a mask. And whenever I'm like see people exercising without masks, like I want to yell at them, but instead now I have this gesture where I point my fingers to my mask, and then I just raise my hand like a screw you gesture. Sorry if I can't say that, but I just like like what are you thinking? What are you thinking? I agree. So listen, I want to be clear here. I think this will be bad, right? I mean, how are you defining bad? I think it's already bad. 100,000 dead. It's embarrassing compared to
Mhm.
other countries. What I'm talking about is, can we manage it, and maybe manage the bad? But if you ask me now, what number do I have in my head? A real number, none of this funky stuff coming out of Georgia and Florida where they're playing with the numbers. I would not be shocked if we were at 400,000 dead by the end of the year. I mean, we'll hit, because of the ending of social distancing, we'll probably hit 200,000 relatively quickly. Our
Mhm.
health systems can probably manage that at this stage, and we're better at protecting vulnerable populations. I mean, if you look at the numbers, 50% of those, and I saw this in Connecticut, if we had just protected shut down outside access to elderly care and elderly facilities, you would have halved your death rate.
Mhm.
So it's
But
bad.
are
We're in
you not
a
worried about
pandemic, so like
hospitals?
everything's bad. So I'm just like trying to make it less bad, or trying to think about ways to make it less bad.
Great, and let's talk more about that. We're talking with Juliette Kayyem, who's a CNN analyst. We're throwing that in for a little pop
Okay,
culture
good.
cred. But she is a lecturer at Harvard School of Government, and most importantly here, she was assistant secretary at the Department of Homeland Security under President Obama, and she helped figure out how to handle the H1N1 pandemic and the BP oil spill response. So let's think back. Can you think of a day you guys made a decision or you learned something in the Department of Homeland Security dealing with H1N1 that
Yeah.
applies to how to think about this?
Yeah. So a couple things. So one is, I mean, well, there are such major differences. Sometimes it's hard, like just to make it clear to listeners, like this is a 50-state disaster, which the United States has never had to deal with before. Like H1N1 was really a border disaster. I mean, a border state problem that we were able to contain. So a couple of things. I mean, I think one, we're in what I call, or what in crisis management calls is the preparedness paradox, which is the more we do to protect ourselves, the less the harm seems and the more crazy people like me seem, right? So because if you're successful in pushing for preparedness, then you're not going to get 1 million dead. Well, does that mean that you shouldn't have done those things? No. So I think the president plays really well on that. You know, he comes out and he says, they told me it was going to be 1 million dead and it's not. So therefore, why are we still closed? Well, the reason it's 100,000 dead with, and let's just be clear here, semi-extreme social distancing rules. We were nowhere close to what Europe and Italy. I mean, we like to pretend like we,
Right.
but the
You
American
didn't have
public,
to ask a cop for permission to go to the grocery store.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, and look, the American public, has done incredibly well. I think it's worth saying, more than once, like and you look at the polling, 80% believe in masks. Like Fox and Trump are now complete outliers on the masking issue. So that's one. The other is, I think, the sort of need for clarity of communications. And we've been lacking that often on the federal level. But if you sort of pierce, if you can get out of the politics and just look at, the science, and you look at what the governors and the mayors have been doing, including yours, I just think that the importance of a steady hand, eyes wide open, here's what we're doing, here's what we anticipate, is really key. And these mayors and governors, Republican and Democrats, have really risen to the occasion. I mean, there's
I've
the
been thinking
crazies
about that watching Trump, and I hate to get too political here because even though I disagree with so much what Trump does, I don't think this is a liberal conservative. I look at Governor Ohio, but I think about how Governor Cuomo early on made the same kind of mistakes Trump did in guessing what to do.
Yeah.
But because he did everything you just said, which was he was a steady hand, he was clear, he didn't make it about himself, he kind of made it seem like we're all in this together. People gave him so much rope and believed objectively that he was doing so much better than President Trump, even though he said we're going to do contact tracing and never did, even though he, like most public officials, was late to the game, realizing how serious this was. I've been thinking about how remarkable it is that Donald Trump has failed to rally the country around him, when really you only have to be a C or D grade elected official to get people behind.
Yeah, no, I mean, part of it is just this, there's this ability to always make it about him, and, and praise. And I mean, and I think, like, I mean, when the New York Times listed what, 1% of the names dead, 100,000 dead. I mean, how do you even grasp that, right? And the president clearly wants us to view it through the lens of him rather than what this country is going through. I mean, I'm sure, you may be similar to me, where, 2 months ago, the degrees of separation of someone dying, were maybe 3 or 4. And then this weekend I lost someone who I had worked with. I mean, not closely, but someone, I mean, so those degrees are getting closer for everyone.
It strikes me most, like when you're outside a bigger city like New York, we're in New Haven, 130,000 people.
Yeah.
My synagogue is a mile from an African-American church where both institutions were too late in stopping risky events. They have lost several people to death and a whole lot of people to illness. And we are a larger congregation, have not lost a single person to death, and we don't know of anyone as ill. And I think that has to do with socioeconomics.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're seeing that breakdown. So, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, one is, and this is, crises like these, this is true of Hurricane Katrina or a pandemic, expose the injustices. They don't solve them, and they expose the injustices. So one is obviously, when did a church versus a synagogue call it, and access to information and education, but also, to the extent that the industries that had to continue to work outside of the home fell disproportionately on minority
Right. Who
communities.
had to take a bus? Who had a
Right,
job where they had to go
right.
more with the public?
I mean, we have
And
something interesting here in Massachusetts that we can't figure out, that our gender fatality rate is higher woman, which is inconsistent with every
really,
other jurisdiction. So I
right.
think we're trying to figure that out. I don't know. I don't know why more women are dying here.
Wow.
So
And
yeah,
Yvette
so it's
Johnson says,
interesting.
great discussion. Thank you for the info. Thanks for listening, Yvette. You're listening to WNHH's Dateline New Haven. We're having the pleasure of meeting with Juliette Kayyem, who's one of the most knowledgeable people in the country of how you deal with a government crisis like this and a healthcare crisis. So can I ask you a question again? Can I ask you about H1N1? Because you say such interesting stuff, I start going off to other follow-ups.
Yeah.
What was a moment where you either made a mistake or did something right in the room with top federal officials under Obama dealing with H1N1 that gives you a lesson for what the government could do now in pandemic response?
Well, I know what we did. I mean, they're probably all similar, but I know what we did right in one sense, which was, in a pandemic, there's no perfect answer, but the wrong answer is the late one. So what we did is we established a very intense battle rhythm of the senior leadership team. Now, I was only on the DHS side. There was, of course, the HHS side, but DHS was very involved because people don't, and they should be more involved now, but DHS, because of FEMA and the border and stuff, we had major assets. So because you just have to make decisions. Like they're under like totally not ideal circumstances. And so that became our, what we call the battle rhythm of the crisis. I just feel like this White House doesn't have that right now. Like, it's like everything's slightly delayed and kind of controversial. It's like literally you just make a decision and then you try to fix it if not. I think where we really underestimated stuff, and I think it's a lesson about healthcare workers now, is because remember DHS, we're the border agency. We have Customs and Border Protection, ICE, TSA, Coast Guard, is we did not take into account their own personal vulnerability. And I think even then we were, it wasn't as, H1N1 wasn't as lethal, but we were late on, I think, the PPE stuff. So that's always, you just got to protect your frontline workers. And that's what, now coming back to coronavirus, that's what's so frustrating about what's happening, the lack of masks and stuff like that. Is just because we kind of know that part, and we knew in January that we were likely going to have a pandemic. Just get them freaking masks. Like, they're not that hard to make, require companies to make them. And everything has just been just slow.
Julia, can I ask you a lightning round? I'm going to ask you whether you would do the following and whether you think people should.
Great.
Go to the beach.
Wait, whether I, as a mother of three,
and other people too, answer twofold. Will Juliette do it? And should the average American go to the beach?
Yes, with all the caveats of distance and stuff.
How about outdoor dining?
Yes, with all the caveats of distance and stuff. I mean, you got to look at what the place is doing. That's yes for the public. No for me. I mean, I'm, my risk tolerance is so low right now. All of that stuff, I'd go to the beach for a walk or a paddleboard, but I don't know. Restaurants might be further down.
Well, you can get too scared, and you must have done this at DHS. When you look at the reports, you get not just the worst case scenario, but the science is scary because life is full of risk. Right. Any subject you're looking at DHS, when you look at the number of people who want to bring anthrax or attack the country, like I think you guys did a great job under Bush and Obama in protecting us from terrorism, stuff we never heard of. The chatter you get over the line. So when I read the epidemiology, I think about someone next to me at a table or a server, one sneezed at thousands of miles per hour, or even just touching the forks or eating because you can't eat with a mask, and how those particles go in the air. I can't read that and say it's safe for me to go outdoor dining. But then I listen to you and I'm persuaded by the idea that you have to manage the risk.
Yes, you're managing it.
And you can get rid of the vast majority of danger, but you're not living your life without risk.
Right. But also, let me just be clear here. I mean, one is there's, as I said to your listeners, there's no right answer. If you do not want, in other words, the experience of going to a restaurant, how fun will that be if you're masked and your waiter's masked and you're, 6 feet away from look, the experience will be different. We might get used to it. We'll see what happens over the summer
Well, in
because,
Connecticut Shoreline, they were pressed together at the bars,
oh, I saw that.
like
Oh my
about masks.
God. I don't know what these people are thinking.
How about indoor dining? Yes or no?
Okay, I'm going to answer today. No, no.
And how about it? Why would it be different in 3 weeks? Because we'll find out if the numbers are going.
Yeah, we're like
Isn't it?
in 2 weeks, if we have a huge spike because we opened up too early, I'm going to tell everyone to go back inside, but we're in this weird period. But I do think that because we are mitigating, people are wearing, I know we do all the pictures of the Ozarks but like for the most part, the polling is pretty consistent. People are masking, they're trying to avoid um, mass events and stuff. I mean, obviously cable news and others like the outliers, but so we'll just see whether personal conduct can mitigate the fact we're opening up early.
Is it possible to put the genie back in the bottle in America? Can you get people to
I
go
mean, could we
back?
go back inside? I think it would be very hard. I mean, it would definitely be state by state, but I mean, the worst case scenario is, of course, you have massive infections and massive hospital visits, and then the hospital capacity falls apart. Now, at its worst, New York didn't even handle that. So we may have more give in our healthcare system than we first thought, but it will be hard, and that's why I just think our numbers. I have this way of talking that's sort of descriptive so I don't get outraged and stuff. So I don't mean it that I'm not outraged. I mean, this has been an unmitigated failure, but for the good conduct of the American public and governors and mayors, right?
God,
100,000 deaths. Look, compared to I mean, it's like, besides Brazil, like, okay, thanks. That's a great comparison.
and Scott D. Huff says, Juliette, truly one of the most intelligent and thoughtful people in the country. Sal Venturelli, elementary stuff. Thanks,
Oh my
Jeanette.
God.
These
Can I
people, the
can I
ones,
can I tattoo that on me? I'm
the ones,
joking.
these people, says Sal's, these people, the ones without PPE and distancing, do not have a grasp on the obvious. What about backyard birthday parties with 12 people and individually wrapped food? Would
Totally.
you feel
The
safe?
outdoor, and I mean, 12 seems a little high, but I do think we haven't been very good about talking about sort of private social engagements. I mean,
Talk
if your
about that.
backyard, my husband and I did our first one, 3 couples outside, distance, mask. We each brought our own drinks. It was really nice. I mean, it's different and you get annoyed at the masking stuff, but look, we have to be human again. So it was nice. I mean, to
Yeah, we
get
had
out.
we had our brother and his sister-in-law over, and you do have to let people use the bathroom. You can't be cruel.
Yeah, that's true. Although I took care, I mean, we had like not, but like, there's reasons why you have to plan ahead. Like, my husband's parents are in DC and we're trying to figure out, when we'll see them again. My parents are in California and could we drive down to DC? It's about 8-hour drive. And all I can obsess about is, yes, I can drive down there, but because I mean, I know there's ways to travel safely on airplanes, but once again, risk reward, easier to jump in a car.
So we're
So
trying to
then I'm
figure
like
out,
thinking about the bathrooms.
do we drive an hour and a half to see our 2-year-old grandson?
Yeah.
Because we're worried, can you hug him if
Yeah.
you go and use the bathroom? What do you think? No hugging.
No hugging.
No
You're
hugging.
how old are you?
I'm gonna be 60 this week. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait a
No
little
hugging.
longer.
What about reporters interviewing people from 6 feet away with masks? Is that safe?
Yes. I actually had a reporter come to my house and everything's in the backyard.
All right. So now, how long do you think we can do this? Now, let's say you're at DHS today. What would you be telling the president if you still had that job overall?
So I would be talking about it in like three, this is what I do is like 3 different lanes. So one is going to be what I described as that adaptive recovery, where we're minimizing contacts, we're maximizing our mitigation policies. We're throwing everything, to try to sort of minimize the risk. Then so that's the first thing that you want to do as we're opening up. Then the second, and that can be, a year plus, right? The second is what else can we be doing to try to mitigate harm? So that's going to be things like testing and tracing and eventual treatments. You just want to focus on on ways in which you can just minimize community spread. So one is individual, the other is what can the government do, and then the third is, the vaccine. But we got to be really careful about the way we're talking about this vaccine. I mean, everyone's looking for the, one hit wonder. And, it's going to be, chances are it's going to be multiple vaccines for different populations. We're going to have, even if it's made, everyone got so excited about Moderna here in Massachusetts after
eight people they tested. I can't believe that.
And then it came out that two of the senior executives dumped a bunch of stocks. It went up, and I'm all for people making money if they're going to save the world. I mean, that seems like a good deal, but we do have a transparency issue. So we got to think about distributing the vaccine. Look, we're going to have a presidential election in the middle of it, so that's going to be interesting as well.
Are we going to have a presidential election in the middle?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah. Right. This guy, I mean, he's so unpopular that the idea that I don't even know the scenario in which we don't have one. Like what? Like
you're involved in disaster and unpreparedness. So you're not one of these people. There was a story about the Times yesterday about never Trumpers and Democrats playing out these scenarios about Trump not having the election or not leaving office if he loses, or not letting people vote. You're not worried about these things.
No, he's a total wimp. He's a total loser. I mean, he's horrible. I mean, on my perspective, but he never, it's going to be horrible. The transition will be horrible. Here's how it's going to go. He's going to lose. I mean, in the ideal for a Democrat like me, he's going to lose mostly because white elderly people finally will wake up to the fact that he, is not protecting them. And then like white educated men who remain, or white men who remain his core, whatever, we'll deal with them later, but that you're just going to get enough of support. He will claim it wasn't fair. He'll be cranky. He'll do horrible things. He will not, here's what I think he will not show up to the inauguration of the next president. That's what he'll do.
All right, we can live with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, our time's running out. I got to tell you, I never met you before. I love talking to you.
Thank you. Well, I'm so glad we could do this. I know we've been trying for a while, but I'm really thrilled.
Juliette Kayyem, one of the stand analyst, Harvard Kennedy School of Government lecturer, and a former assistant secretary at the Department of Homeland Security dealing with pandemics. Thanks for coming on Dateline New Haven today.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, everyone.
I'm sorry we didn't get to the other comments, folks, but thanks for listening.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thanks, everyone. As long as they were nice, I don't want to hear the bad ones.
Yeah, we didn't get the yucky stuff today.
Okay, good. You're my favorite. Well, have a good one.
WNHA station manager Harry Drost, the miracle man behind the controls. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH Radio.
This is Harry Droz, and you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven.